and we can get started. So first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Devin Zingler. I'm the program manager at NGO CSW New York. So I am also the coordinator of the NGO CSW Forum. So I do a lot of the organizing for that, including a portal. So yeah, so this session is just going to be a little bit of a training for exhibitors and Handbook Ad sponsors. I'm going to walk you through the portal, give an overview of what your event page or your booth or your ad page would look like, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. I'll actually just go through our agenda so you know what to expect for today. So I'm going to split the session up in two parts, essentially. The first part is going to be for exhibitors and exhibit booths. The second part is going to be for Handbook Ad and sponsors. So a lot of this information will be the same for both. There are some differences between exhibit booths and Handbook Ads, but there are a lot more similarities. So I will be repeating myself a lot during this session, but I think it's better to repeat than not mention something at all, I guess. So that's how we're going to be formatting it. At the end, we'll have a Q&A, like I mentioned, but throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat because I have my team here who can answer questions as well through that way. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Hootie, who's gonna welcome us and introduce herself and stuff a little bit.
Thanks, Devin, for including me, for giving me a chance to address you all and say thank you so much. The first thing I want to thank you for is your patience. If you have applied, if you have emailed, if you are requesting more information, I can tell you, first of all, we're excited. We're so excited that we're on the verge of launching our first ever hybrid forum. And I want to acknowledge and amplify Sun Young Yoon, who I think is still here. I saw her in the chat. And I want to thank her for all the opportunities she's given me to get to where I am right now to host this hybrid event. I can tell you this, it is a lot harder than we ever imagined, but we're going to do it because that's what the demand is and that's what the future is. And we're doing our best to accommodate everyone. So we will get to all of your emails, all of your questions. I'm so grateful for Devin to go out of her way to do all kinds of tutorial videos and these trainings. And I know it sometimes feels like it's another language and we're not getting it. I actually went on the portal again and looked at the exhibit booths and everything. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, I can even understand this. And I am not a tech person at all. So just be patient with yourself, be patient with us, and help us make this a successful forum. And I thank you all because just so that you also know that exhibit booths and sponsorship income actually pays our rent, pays our interns and our office program manager. So we really appreciate it. So if you know of any organizations or other people who can benefit from being exposed to our audience, please share the link with them. And we're going to do our best to populate the platform as soon as we can. I'm also so happy to report, I'm sure you all can see it, we have over 5,200 people already on the portal, and we're just finishing up uploading the parallel events. That also kind of was a little bit harder because, again, we're doing the in-person and then uploading, and we're doing the virtual and then we're uploading, but we're doing the best we can. So thank you, and I'll be here throughout the session to answer questions and interact with you all. I know I saw Winifred, I saw Fatma. I'm so grateful for all of my old friends showing up and supporting us. Devin, I hope I covered everything that was important, and I will answer questions throughout the session. And take your time, Devin. I know this is a lot for you for the next 90 minutes to educate us all. So thanks again.
Thanks so much, Hootie. Yeah, you definitely covered everything. Yeah. So one, I will start by saying that if you have applied for an exhibit booth or a handbook ad, you should have received an email with an acceptance, and depending on what tier of handbook ad or if you got an exhibit booth, you received in that email a link to start editing your either exhibit booth or handbook ad page. So if you haven't received that email, I would first, they did go out to the emails that you indicated in your application. So definitely check those and also check your spam just in case it went there. And if you haven't received it, just shoot us an email at info@ngocsw.org and we can resend that for you. So first, I just want to start by reiterating the difference between exhibit booths and handbook ads. Like I mentioned, they are very similar in the features that they have. So here's just a little chart. So essentially, both exhibit booths and handbook ads have a page on the virtual portal. So they will have their own page for their booth or handbook ad. And this page is customizable with a description and logo and graphics and all of that. And I'll share my screen and show more about the actual page later on. Exhibit booths and handbook ads, you're also able to host events on that unique page on the portal. And depending on the handbook tier that you have, so the first tier is just the ad in the handbook itself. So if you purchased the lowest tier, the $100 tier, you do not have a page on the portal. But all of the other handbook ad tiers do have that page on the portal. And the only difference with the tiers is that you get a little bit more exposure depending on what tier you have. So as you can see in the chart, it just shows the different places on the portal and the app that you would be featured. So this is also on our website. And I know my team is putting that in the chat. So if you want to check this chart out more and read more about the specific differences, you can go to the website. So I'll start by talking about the exhibit booths and all of those features and everything. And like I said at the beginning, I am splitting this presentation into two sections, one for exhibit booths and one for handbook ads. So if you're here because you purchased a handbook ad, I will be getting to that, don't worry, but also still definitely pay attention to this section because there are so many similarities and a lot of the information will be pretty much identical. So first I'll talk about the features of the exhibit booth. Like I mentioned, you'll have your own page that's customizable, and this page will be found under the Exhibitors tab on the main menu of the portal. And I will share my screen and show you all exactly what this looks like. You can upload handouts and materials. You can upload a video and photos. There's a chat feature where participants can chat with each other and with you. That's also a good place to maybe post, updates or things like that. There's lead or contact retrieval. So essentially, participants can leave their card at your booth. And this essentially just leaves their contact information with you to indicate that they want to learn more. You can host events within your booth. And there's lots of different ways that participants can engage with the booth and also with booth representatives. So I will now, frozen, okay. I'll now show you the actual portal. So I'm just going to switch my screen here. Let's see. Ooh. Sorry if you can hear my cats fighting in the background. Oh my gosh, they're crazy right now. Okay. So everyone can see my screen, right? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. So let me just X out this. Okay. So this is what the portal looks like. I hope that you all have registered for the forum and have access to this portal. If you haven't, the link is in the chat to do that. So if you want to hop on the portal and kind of follow along, feel free. So this is the home page. I won't get too much into like all of the details of the portal since we're focused on exhibit booths and handbook ads in this session. But if you wanted a more robust tutorial or walkthrough of the portal, we are putting out a tutorial video very soon, probably today or tomorrow. That'll be on our YouTube channel. And it's essentially just a walkthrough of all of the different features on the portal. So I won't go into that right now, but just know that that resource will be available. If this platform is like a little bit overwhelming or confusing, or you just would like a walkthrough, that will definitely be available. So to get to the exhibit booths and handbook ads, people will go to the exhibitors and sponsors tab on this main menu. This main menu does show on every page. So it automatically brings you to exhibit booths, but if you wanted to go to handbook ads, you just click the sponsor tab and it gives you the list of handbook ads. But I'll start with exhibitors. So this is what the exhibit booths will look like. As you can see, they are categorized. So we have our exhibit booths for our advocacy and research group, ourselves, our YLYPs. We are amplifying the Generation Equality Action Coalitions on the exhibit booths as well. Also, these will have information about the Generation Equality Action Coalitions if you're interested. And then at the top is all of the other exhibit booths that people are applying for. So I will show our exhibit booth as an example. So as you can see, participants can just click visit booth. And also if you are assigned to your booth, you also will have this little edit booth button that makes it nice and easy to edit your booth. So this is what the booth will look like. You can upload a video. I would recommend uploading it as like a YouTube or a Vimeo link because it works a little bit better. It has that autoplay, as you can see. But you can also upload like an MP4 if you needed to. Here shows if you are, the primary contact for your exhibit booth, this little box will show up and it has, so you can edit your booth. This exhibitor guide is a great resource that also walks you through how to utilize your exhibit booth. You can promote your booth. So this has kind of pre-made templates for if you wanted to share your booth on social media. And you can also view your leads and contacts. So those are the people who leave their card. So you have the name, you have a little slogan, your information. For this information at the top, this is your primary contact, this email address. So make sure that you are, when you're applying for exhibit booths, make sure that you are using an email that you don't mind having publicly displayed on the booth. So you're going to have a description and include links. This is where the event would be listed. People can RSVP to it and it will show on their my agenda. You can have handouts and photos, and you can also add booth staff who participants can send a message to or video call if they wanted to contact your staff. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what the exhibit booth looks like. Oh, also there's this chat feature over here, like I mentioned, where you could post whatever you wanted, updates, but also participants can post here as well to ask you questions or start a conversation or whatever. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just going to look at my next item in the agenda. Yeah, okay, so that's just a little bit of an overview of what the booth looks like. I definitely recommend getting onto the portal and exploring the exhibit booths a little bit to get even more comfortable with this. But yeah, and so I'll now show you how to edit your booth, which will be important, obviously, because you can edit your booth yourself. Most of the stuff is customizable. So there are a couple of ways to edit your booth. The first is to go to your booth and click this edit booth button, and it'll bring you to this form. And this is where you will input the information for your exhibit booth. So I will note here that some of the language on this platform, Huba, which we're using, is not super aligned with our field or like NGOs or nonprofits. Some of the language is kind of like corporate jargon. So, and unfortunately, there are some things that we can't change that language. We have tried, we have asked, but unfortunately, they just can't change it. So, for example, the live product demo would be the event that you're hosting in your booth, and I'll talk more about that. But product video is just any video you wanted. And also these promotional offers, you could do like a raffle or a giveaway if you wanted to, but it's definitely more geared towards, yeah, like corporate or private sector, but that's definitely an option if you wanted to. But yeah, I just wanted to flag that these phrases are definitely a little bit confusing because they are definitely geared towards like products or a company selling products. But it just is the event and any video that you wanted to upload. You can add all of the contact information, the address, the logo, a description. You can add links in the description. You can change the color of the text. So you can customize that a little bit. You can add photos here. And you can't add additional booth staff yourself, but if you just shoot us an email, we can add that person very easily, very quickly. So, oh my gosh, sorry everyone. Yeah, so this is the form that you would use to edit it. And as I said, you can get to this form in a couple of different ways. So you can get it by going directly to your booth. You can also go to this My Stuff tab, where it will show an exhibitor hub. And this is also where you'll see kind of the stats of your booth as well. Leads will show up here. You can see how many people visited your booth. And this is also where you can edit your booth again. And lastly, you can edit your booth by going to the list of exhibitors. Like I showed before, there is this little edit booth button on this little square of your booth as well. So there are a couple different options for editing your booth. And like I said, if you have applied for a booth already, you should have received an acceptance email with a link to edit your booth as well. So that's an additional option if you wanted to just go to that email and use that. So yeah, okay, so now I'll dive a little bit into hosting events on your booth. So like I showed before, your event would be listed under product demo or live product demo. Like I said, we can't change that terminology, but it is just any event. And when you are adding the event, all you need is the title, the date and time, and a link. So just with, just like all of the events during the forum, all the virtual events during the forum, organizers are required to use their own virtual meeting platform. So Zoom or Google Meets or whatever. So you do have to use your own link, but that's all you need to include. It's just the title, date, time, link, and it'll show up here. And participants will be able to directly RSVP to your event. And then when you RSVP, it also gives you the option to add it to your personal calendar. So if you wanted to add it to your Google Calendar or whatever, you can do that. And when people RSVP, it also shows up in their My Agenda, which is essentially just the schedule of events that they've indicated that they want to go to. So this is that event that I just RSVP'd to, and it shows up in My Agenda. However, these exhibit booth events do not show on the full agenda with the rest of the events. Like this agenda has the parallel events and our events, so it doesn't show up on this main schedule. So if you do want people to go to that or like register for that event, you can either send them the direct link that you've put in the event, or you can direct them to your exhibit booth and just have them RSVP, and then it'll show up on their My Agenda. So another thing to note with the events is that you can only have one of these events listed at a time. So for example, you couldn't have like multiple of these little boxes here. It's just this one box with one event at a time. This doesn't mean that you can only host one event in your booth during the duration of the 2 weeks. You can have multiple, and I would recommend having them in the description. Like I said, you can add links, so you could definitely add the links there. And then once the first event is over, replace this information with your second event, and so on and so forth. And you can also upload a flyer with the events as well. So that's just the other thing to note, is that you can't have more than one of these boxes on the booth at the same time. But that doesn't mean that you can only host one event. There's kind of ways to get around that. Yeah, I think that's that for that section. I will go back to our slides. So yeah, so just to reiterate one more time, the live product demo is your event. So this is where that will be on the form when you're editing your event page. And just some things to note once again is that you can only have one at a time on that page. You have to use your own platform link like Zoom. It won't show up on the main agenda, but when people RSVP, it'll show up on their My Agenda. And finally, this kind of is wrapping up my exhibit booth portion of this presentation. But here's just some important notes to keep in mind. The first is that the primary contact will be the public email that's shown on the exhibit booth page. So like I mentioned before when I was showing the page, that email that's right at the top will be public. So when you're applying for the exhibit booth, just keep that in mind and maybe use like a general email. Like, for example, we have our info@ngocsw.org email there. And with that, you will need to have a profile on the portal using that email to be able to edit the booth. So you would use that profile to edit the booth. So if you're putting a general email like info@ngocsw.org, you would go and register for the forum using the email info@ngocsw.org and sign up for a profile on the portal using that email. Secondly, the primary contact is the only email that can actually edit your exhibit booth. So you can add booth staff, additional booth representatives to your booth, but they will not be able to edit your booth directly. Really, the only thing they can do is see the leads, so the people who left their card and their contact information. And they would also be listed at the bottom of your booth for participants to be able to see that they're booth representatives and get in contact with them if they have any questions. I'll mention the terminology again. It is more geared towards corporate spaces. So the product demo is just your event, and the product video is just any video you want to add, and that'll show right at the top of your booth. And you can only upload one video at a time for it to show like that on your booth. But if you wanted to include links to other videos in your description, that's definitely an option. So I will stop here for exhibit booths and move on to handbook ads. So like I mentioned at the beginning, handbook ads and exhibit booths are very similar in the features that they have on the portal. So a lot of this info, I'm just kind of gonna repeat and breeze through so we have time for our Q&A. So handbook ads. There are different features depending on which tier you're using. So like I mentioned, the first tier for $100 does not have a page on the virtual portal. It just is that ad graphic included in our handbook. And actually, if one of my teammates could maybe put last year's handbook in the chat as an example of what I mean by that, that'd be great. So the second tier and the three later tiers all do have that page on the portal, but depending on the tier, they just have different levels of exposure. So all of them have the page on the portal and also a page in the handbook. So I will go over the details for sending your graphic and like the specifications for that. All of them can have events on your page on your ad page. All of them will be featured on the home page of the app. And then the supporter tier and the advocate tier are featured on the agenda page on the app, and the profile pages on the app. And then the highest tier is featured on the website header. And I'll actually just share my screen with the portal to show you what I mean by that. So this is that rolling banner of all of the highest tiers. So as you can see, it kind of scrolls through the different sponsors, and you can click right there to visit their handbook ad. So those are the different tiers and the different options for handbook ads and the different features that they have depending on the tier. And similarly to the exhibit booths, there is this weird terminology. So the event is a live product demo again. But I will share what the handbook ads look like in the portal. Like I said, the exhibitors and the sponsors do have very similar information, and the pages look very similar. But to get to sponsors, you would again click this tab, Exhibitors and Sponsors. Click Sponsors, and then it gives you the list of handbook ads. So I will use Zonta International as a example. So as you can see, the list is here, and it's categorized by the tier. And if you want to just get rid of this, you can just click this little arrow to make the actual ad page a little bit bigger. So similar to the exhibit booth, it has the information, contact information, a description. You can also add a video here, and there's the chat feature here. The main difference between the handbook ad pages and the exhibit booths is that handbook ad pages do not have the lead or contact retrieval. So there isn't like a leave your card option for handbook ads. But of course, you could always get in contact with them or send them a chat if you wanted to connect with them. And yeah, the difference between the handbook ads and the booths is that handbook ads, you can only have the one handbook ad contact. So it's pretty much just the primary contact, and unfortunately you can't add any other representatives to the handbook ad. And same thing with the events. I don't think any of the sponsors have an event plugged in that I can show, but it would be the same thing as the exhibit booths, where it has this little box of the event that you can RSVP. Sorry guys, that video does automatically play, so another thing to note. Yeah, so handbook ads will have this box for an event. If you choose to add one with the RSVP button, that will add the event to participants' My Agenda. And yeah, I think that's kind of all of the new information about the handbook ads. Like I said, I don't want to repeat myself too much since so much of it is the same. But now I'll talk about the actual graphics for the handbook ad, like I mentioned before. And again, with the handbook ads, the event information is the same. So you can only have the one event box at a time. You have to use your own virtual platform. It won't be on the agenda, but it will show up on people's My Agenda if they RSVP to the event. So for the graphic for the actual handbook ad in the handbook, so our handbook does have all of these ads in the back of the handbook, and it will be a full page ad. So essentially all that y'all have to do is email us a graphic for that ad page, and we will include it in the handbook. So the deadline to send your graphic is the 27th of February, which is 1 week before the start of the forum. We like to have the handbook published and available for people to check out before the forum starts, so they can see all the stuff that's happening. So that is pretty hard deadline, the 27th of February. And in terms of the format for the ad, please send it to us in an image format, either PNG or JPEG. And it should be 8 by 11 inches or 1545 by 2000 pixels. And this information is in the Handbook Ad FAQs and also the acceptance emails that we sent to Handbook Ads as well. So don't worry about like writing this down or remembering it. The information is also available in other places. And just again, important notes about Handbook Ad pages. The primary contact will be that public email on the Handbook Ad page. Again, I recommend using a general email. And then with that, you have to register that email on the portal and use that profile to then edit your Handbook Ad page. And unfortunately, unlike exhibit booths, you aren't able to add other representatives or staff to your Handbook Ad page. And again, the terminology is a little bit weird, but product demo just means your event, and the product video can be any video, and that will show up on the top of your ad page. And again, you can only upload one video at a time so that it shows at the top of your screen like that. Okay, so the next thing are just, so these resources will be really, really helpful. I really highly recommend reading them in depth. Specifically the FAQs, we have one for exhibitors and one for Handbook Ad sponsors. And that includes all of the information I shared today, plus some other information, some other details. These are on our website, and they were included in the acceptance emails as well. So if at any point you have, you need to go back to this information, this is a really great reference. And additionally, Whova, which is the platform that we're using, also has their own guides. So there is one for exhibitors and one for sponsors. So that also gives you all of the information about editing your page and all of those details. We will be publishing tutorial videos. Like I mentioned, we have one for just generally navigating the portal, just an overview of that for general participants, but we also will have one for parallel event organizers, one for exhibitors, and one for Handbook Ad sponsors. So those will be coming out within the next week or two, and those will also be really helpful. It's essentially just a screen recording of me going through the portal and showing you exactly how to do all of these things that I've mentioned today. So that will also be a really great resource. We have the general FAQs for just all things, essentially just give some tips and guidance on being as safe as possible during the forum, specifically online, and how to protect your online security and safety, and also protect the security and safety of those who might be in your events page, etc. And these virtual safety guidelines, which you should all pretty much be familiar with because we put them on everything, on every application. And it's essentially just a basic code of conduct about, just basic safety and respect and stuff like that. So definitely check those out. And I believe my team's putting the relevant links for this in the chat. But that is pretty much my spiel. So let's open it to Q&A. I will ask Hootie maybe to take the first couple of questions, just so I can give my voice a break. But
Actually, yes, you did great, Devin, and I know how hard this is to keep repeating. But the most important, oh, you're getting applause. That's so nice, whoever is applauding. The most important question we're getting is why some exhibit booths that were approved and paid for are not on the portal yet. And I know you've been following up with those emails, so take your time to respond to that. And the other one that I was typing, which I will answer, and then I will, have you guys raise your hands and talk as well. But who can attend? Will public be able to reply to the event with the link, or will it just be for people who register in the handbook ad? No. And first of all, everybody's welcome on our portal. But if you have any kind of events, they do need to register on the portal to attend and see your ad and the exhibit booth and the parallel events. So I think if you just can address how soon can everybody see the approved exhibit booths, there's a few missing on the portal.
So I did send all of the acceptances to those who applied for both booths and ads. If you applied for a booth, the email will come from info@ngocsw.org. So first, just check your spam and maybe search for that email in case you miss it. And secondly is the handbook ads. Those acceptances have also been sent out, but those come from handbookads@ngocsw.org. So also just check spam and search for that too. We don't use that email super often. As you can imagine, we only use it for handbook ad related things. So it's definitely possible that it went to spam. But if you definitely didn't get it, please email us and we'll be more than happy to resend that to you.
I think there was specific ones like Winifred and Sun Young said theirs was approved and accepted, but they're not uploaded on the website, on the portal.
So all of them are uploaded on the portal too.
Okay, so why are we not seeing it? When you showed it, we didn't see it.
So, well, Sun Young's is an exception, and we've been talking about that. Because you can't have an exhibit booth and a handbook ad for the same organization. But Winifred's, I believe, was a handbook ad, and hers does show under sponsors.
Okay, that's new to me too. So the same organization can't have both an exhibit and an ad or
Correct.
a sponsor. This is news to me, everyone. Can we just acknowledge this for a second, how we're all learning together?
So Megan, the handbook ads and the exhibit booths are totally different, but some handbook ads, pretty much all of them except that first tier, have the handbook ad page, but that page is different from an exhibit booth. Kimberly, could we change handbook sponsor to exhibit booth? Yes, but I would recommend just applying for an exhibit booth, and we can then delete the handbook ad application because the prices are different and some of the information is slightly different. Yeah. So also I will mention again that if you applied for if you applied for a handbook ad on that friend tier for $100, you will not have a page on the portal. You will just have that ad graphic in the actual handbook itself. Andrea, if you can ask for registration for our event, I would highly recommend using registration for any of the events you have in your booth or handbook ads. And this is actually something mentioned in that safety and security resource. So when you don't use a registration link and just put like the direct link to join, for example, a Zoom call, if you just put that direct link like publicly on the internet, it's much easier for Zoom bombers to enter. Also, you just don't have that information of who registered for your event. You might want to have that information. So I would highly recommend using a registration link in the link for your event. Winifred, so what does one get for $7.50? Does that allow one access a booth space? So I think there's some confusion about the handbook ad page and the exhibit booth. All handbook ad tiers, besides the friend tier, besides the first one, you all have a handbook ad page on the portal. That's not an exhibit booth, it's a handbook ad page. It's a separate thing, and they're listed under sponsors. If you applied for an exhibit booth, you have an exhibit booth that's under exhibitors. So handbook ad doesn't get you an exhibit booth, it gets you a handbook ad page, which is very, very similar to an exhibit booth, but they are two different things.
Maybe I can repeat that while you take a little break, because it can be confusing, but it's pretty simple. So exhibit booths are going to be listed, and you can see from the portal, it's on the side, right? To the left, you see all these different things. You click on the exhibit booth link, it opens up, and you see all the exhibit booths that are listed in different orders, like our exhibit booth organizers, our partner with UN Foundation has its GEF booths, and then NGO CSW has its own GEF, its own exhibit booths. The handbook ads have, the ads sponsors have their own link. Now your ad will also be in the handbook, which is a separate book that we're going to publish with letters from the head of UN Women and the chair of CSW and other information about UN. The link that we shared with you already about last year's handbook ad that has a lot of information plus lots of ads. But on top of that, the portal has a sponsor link where people will click on that sponsor and see and interact with all the levels, all the different levels of sponsors, right? So if you have the $1,000 sponsor, then you get the banner that flips. You also get a big outside of the list of sponsors. But inside of the sponsor list, then you have all the different tiers of sponsors. I know it's a different way of explaining, and I'm hoping that my explanation makes a little bit more sense to some people.
Yes, thanks, Hootie. So I'll just show again exactly what we're talking about. So both exhibit booths and handbook ads are located in this exhibitors and sponsors tab. But there are two different lists, one for exhibitors and one for sponsors, which are handbook ad sponsors. So all of the exhibit booths are listed here, and the sponsors are listed here. So as you can see, like Winifred, we do have yours here, and this is what the page looks like. But this is a handbook ad page. It's not an exhibit booth, even though they look very similar. To get to exhibit booths, you go to exhibitors, and you would visit this booth.
Eating. There's none in the toilet as well.
Yeah, so even though the handbook ad pages and the exhibit booths do look very similar, they are two different things. Yeah, hopefully that cleared up some confusion. How can we get confirmation for what we purchased? When you applied, you should have received a confirmation email with all of the information that you inputted. If you didn't get that, you can email us and we can resend it to you. Also, so Lynn, the exhibit booths and handbook ads, they stay open and visible as long as the portal stays open. So the portal itself will be live 3 months after the end of the forum. So until June 17th. So the everything on the portal, including booths and handbook ads, will be available post forum up until mid-June. I also want to clarify that one of the reasons you might not be receiving an acceptance email is that the acceptance emails went out to the email that you specified to be shown on your exhibit booth or handbook ad page. So that public email that will be shown on your page, like I mentioned before, and you will have to use that email for a profile on the portal to edit that booth. So you can't have your personal profile connected to the booth and edit it. It can only be that primary contact, which is that public email. So also check the emails that you indicated in your application as the email to be publicly displayed on the booth. Ida, yes, we can. As long as you sent us an email, we will do that. And like I said before, the booth staff cannot edit your exhibit booth. Only that primary contact can. So the additional staff that we do add to your booth will not be able to edit it directly, but they will be able to see the leads that are collected, and will be listed on the booth, and participants will be able to see that and message them if they want to contact them.
Yeah, I also want to just reiterate and say that we're really on this together, right? We changed from Pathable to HOVA because we had a lot of issues with Pathable last year. And now we're getting used to this new platform that I have to say is quite easy comparatively and has caused a little less glitches for us than Pathable. And I do want to thank Zonta International for recommending HOVA for us. That's how we got into it. But getting used to the different spaces, we're going to all do this together, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're also open to changing things. Now, I say that cautiously because, as I said in one of my comments, you're dealing with 5 people who are handling 750 events. We can't afford to hire more people. And actually 3 out of 5 is actually not full-time. They're interns and they're working part-time. But we are committed to making this a successful event because we're committed to the mandate of NGO CSW New York, which is bringing all of your voices into the CSW space. So I wanted to reiterate all that and say, and thank you for your patience. If you keep emailing, and we're gonna keep answering the same questions over and over again because we are all learning together, although Devin is the master of it all. She seems to know so much more, and she's been playing around with it for longer, and the videos that she's preparing are just awesome as well. So thank you, Devin. If anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, please feel free to do so.
Yes. And in the meantime, oh man, now I forget what I was going to say.
I interrupted.
No, you didn't interrupt. It was something based on what you said, and now it's just gone. Oh, yes. Yeah, and please do really read those FAQs. A lot of times what we find is that people will email us with questions, which is absolutely fine, and we are here to answer. But a lot of the times the questions are in those FAQs as well. So definitely really actually read those and get familiarized with them. And that should be kind of your first reference point for any questions. But also, like I mentioned, we are putting together those tutorial videos. The tutorial videos that we did last year are up there if you want like just an example of what I'm referring to. The platform is different, so it won't be very helpful, but if you're like, I don't really understand what she means, you can see those. But essentially I will like literally screen record how to do everything that we just talked about. So if you wanted to literally play that video and just like follow along for each item and task, that also will be available. If we are putting up a parallel event, can it be live streamed simultaneously through the Handbook Ad? Yes. So
The same link. I can answer that.
right, yeah. So you would just put the same link in your booth or handbook ad. However, and like that is an option, but people will probably go to your parallel event page first, where that it'll be there too. So if you wanted to have it in two places, you definitely could. But the event in your booth or handbook ad might be more useful for a different event, but you can definitely put that one there too. And you would just put the same link into that. So when you put events onto a booth or a handbook ad, it just asks you for the title, the date and time, and the link. And like I mentioned, we highly recommend using a registration link. On virtual meeting platforms such as Zoom, they do have, that internal registration option. But if you're using a platform that doesn't have that, I would even recommend to set up a registration link on like Eventbrite or something like that, just so you don't have that public or like that direct link just like out there in the internet publicly, because it does, not saying that you'll definitely get 50 Zoom bombers, but it definitely is less secure than using a registration link. Yeah, but ultimately it's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in and reiterate that. And one of the reasons why we went with HOVA, those of you who have been with us for the last couple of years, using our own Zoom links did not work out because we could not provide enough Zoom links, and people wanted all to happen on Tuesday and Wednesday, and it was overlapping, and we could not provide enough Zoom links. And it was also very difficult for us to manage all of your events, obviously, right? It is, and you wanted your lists of people who signed up, and it was hard for us to keep that up. So it was really important for us to give you autonomy over your own event. Use your own link, and it doesn't have to be Zoom. It could be anything you want, right? Any kind of team meetings or Google, you could use depending on what you're expecting. I personally love Zoom because of the interaction. If you think you're doing a highly controversial topic and you are expecting disruptors, then obviously webinar is the way to go, the Zoom webinar, because then you can be more protective. I can tell you this, 99% of our events do not get disrupted because we're not here to have controversial topics, right? We're here to really educate ourselves, each other, and especially this year with tech and education, it should not be too controversial. And I'll speak honestly, what is a controversial topic? Reproductive rights. We have anti and pro-abortion groups. Most of the anti-abortion groups are on our platform and are doing amazing work talking about why they're anti-abortion, and they're not getting disrupted by us. and we allow them to have the conversation. A lot of pro-abortion groups have to be very careful because there's probably one, I would say, or two the most organizations who just will not leave them alone and disrupt them. So they have to be careful. We also want to make sure that the LGBTQI community feels comfortable and safe in all of these events. So I definitely advise you to be careful in the language that you use on how you accept and welcome all kinds of activists and advocates from around the world. But other than that, I'm very proud to say, because we just came out of the UN Women meeting, and it was mentioned that they are also getting lots of emails and information about how to allow anti-abortion groups. I have to be very careful the words I use. But we're always saying that, but they are on our platform, and we do give them space. So to sum it all up, to say is that it is important for you to have control over your own event. I agree with Devin. It's really important to have registration for so many different reasons, right? You want to have the list of people who came to your event to follow up with, to engage with. And again, it's up to you if you want to do that or not. We're just recommending. We know that there was a request for list of people who signed up, and we don't have the capacity to do all the signing up for all of the events and provide the lists. So use your own Zoom links. I would say it's important to have it in the parallel events. If you have a parallel event, that is where people are going to find you. But it's also important to promote it add the link and the sign up link and the Zoom link in your exhibit booth and the ad space, because there will be people going and checking out and seeing who are these important people who have exhibit booths and ads supporting NGO CSW. Thank you. Anybody wants to raise their hands, and I'll give you the mic to speak and ask questions. Yeah, and the only other thing I would say is that be kind with yourself when it seems confusing to you, because it's sometimes just the way our brains work, right? Like, that's why sometimes I like to repeat what Devin said in my own language. It's still English, but it's my own brain explaining what Devin means. And some brains can work maybe how my brain processes it, and some brains work how Devin's brain processes it. And if there's any volunteer here who would like to repeat what they learned, maybe we'll give you a couple of minutes to repeat what you heard, and that might help somebody else before we say goodbye. Because listen, I mean, I would love to give everybody some extra time to go on, and for my team to go on and answer all the emails I see coming in and info and all the places. Any comments?
Ida says in the chat, is it possible to go to events in addition to exhibit booths? Do you mean like participants to go to events and exhibit booths? Because definitely. Also, Andrea, I do see in the chat that you would like to ask something. If you want to just jump in as soon as I'm done with this question, feel free. But Ida, yes, definitely. If you mean if participants can go to events in addition to exhibit booths, for sure, that's what we want. Participants will be on that virtual portal, and the portal has the whole schedule of events, as well as the exhibit booths and the handbook ads. There's some community boards, so there's lots of engagement there. Andrea, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much, Devan and the organizers. We appreciate it a lot. have a little concern. Last time you mentioned we have an in-person event we will organize. Thank you very much for the possibility. But last time you mentioned that there is no registration, anybody can just drop in. And this is, I don't know how the security, the security, how you feel whether we will be secure, because there are so strong or strict rules relating to us, the organizers.
So I think you're misunderstanding what we meant. When we said that you could send the link outside of the portal, we mean your event link, so your Zoom link, etc. It's up to you if you would like that link to be a registration link, which we highly, highly recommend for security purposes. But what we meant by that is that if you wanted to promote your event to, say, your network, or if you wanted to, email the link to someone or whatever, you can do that. And the people don't have to necessarily register for the forum, sign up to the portal, find your event on there, and then click the link there. It just means that you will be able to share that link however you'd like, without someone having to go through that whole process of being registered for the forum and on the portal. In previous years, that was the case where the Zoom link was internal to the portal and people could not join an event unless they had a profile on the portal. But now that organizers are using their own links, they can share that link however they would like to. So we're not saying that these links will be open to whoever and publicly on the internet, definitely not. But we're just saying that the link that you create and that you're in control of and putting on your event page, you can share that link however you'd like.
That's really good information for the virtual. Andrea, were you also bringing up in-person parallel events?
Yes.
Safety? Okay,
Yeah.
let me
Yes.
explain that. Okay.
Yes, but there will be any security when,
Yes.
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 So the people and the entrance to the
That's
building.
right. So there are in both venues, the Church Center and Salvation Army, there will be doormen and people who work in the building who will keep an eye on what's happening in the hallways. You are responsible for what happens in your room. The events are open for anybody from the street to walk into events. I want to be really clear on that. This is one of the things that we're really recognized for and appreciated for, that it is an open forum. You can have your own security if you wish. If you don't want people to walk in from the street, like people who are not registered for your in-person event, if you want to limit that, then I would recommend to have your own check-in people. You can put 1 or 2 people by the door with your guest list and only allow people on your guest list to go into your room. That is completely up to you. The way our in-person parallel events has worked in the past, and I've been doing this for 10 years, we've only had 2 major disruptions that I remember. And that's one of the reasons why those organizations are not allowed to have events with our forum anymore. So the rooms are open for people to come in and out. And that's one of the reasons why people do this, is because they want new audience to learn about their organization and events. We will have security, as I said, in the hallways. If you choose to have an open in-person event where anybody can walk in, don't be afraid. Like I said, we've had thousands of events, and I hope some old members can come on and say how many events we've done where it's not disrupted. And if something does happen in an open event, there will be somebody either on your floor or wherever you are, right? Every event will have some volunteer or a building staff that you can come out to and say, please, we're having issues with one of our guests. Maybe the guest is disrupting the speakers, maybe they're using foul language, or maybe they're getting violent. That has never happened. Violence has never happened. I can tell you that. It's verbal violence sometimes. They just disrupt the speakers. So I would also recommend for your panelists and your moderators to have some experience on how to handle disruptors like that, because there's always a nice way of doing it too. And I'm wondering now in my head, which we don't have the capacity and time for, we can do training on how to moderate and how to be a panelist, but all of you already have done this in so many different spaces. Just use the same techniques of making sure you remind everybody to be patient and speak at the end when they're spoken to. For example, raise your hand, I will call on you, and then you can speak. And then also, if you see that they're speaking for too long, have a way of saying, please, we need to really limit our comments because we only have 90 minutes, right? And as we're speaking about parallel events, I know this is not the event for it. I'm just going to go 30 seconds longer and plug this. It is so important for all of you to know that all parallel events that are in person is no more than 90 minutes. The virtual events can go longer. You can choose how long you want to go with yours. And I say you should never do it more than 120 minutes. But if you want to, go ahead and do 120 minutes. But the in-person events have to end in 90 minutes. We will have our own people to remind you 5 minutes before the 90 minutes hits that you get out in that 90 minutes, because we have scheduled back-to-back events. You have 15 minutes to get out of the room when you're done, and the next panel is ready and waiting to come in, and they have 15 minutes to get in. So we need to be respectful with each other and follow these rules. We don't have policemen to make you do this, but we ask you to do it this way. 15 minutes to set up, 15 minutes to walk out, and 90 minutes for your in-person parallel event. Sorry, Devin, this was not the topic of the day, but it was a good opportunity.
And just to jump in, because Andrea,
Thank you very much.
so for COVID requirements, vaccinations and or a negative test are required for in-person events. Masks are highly encouraged. As you can imagine, there will be lots of different people from all over going in and out, and generally a lot of people. So we highly encourage masking. And in both of the venues, there will be free masks available if you'd like. So that's the COVID stuff. And I did also put a link to the FAQs for parallel event organizers, which has all of that information that we talked about as well. And we also had a training very similar to this one, but for parallel event organizers last week. And the recording for that is in our YouTube channel. So if you missed that, you can definitely check that out as well. Monica, correct. So you'll have 15 minutes before the start time of your event. So if your event's scheduled for 10:30 a.m., you will be able to go into your room at 10:15 a.m. to set up. And then once your event is over at noon, you'll have until 12:15 to break down and leave. And then at 12:15, the next group will come in. So that is a very strict, time slots to keep everyone moving. For example, I have literally the schedule here right next to me. As you can see, it's packed. So so that is a very strict deadline of getting in and out, just to be respectful of the event after you as well. Yes.
I also just want to follow up about the vaccine. There's another question. UN also requires vaccine, but they're not checking the cards. We will try, but we can't really check all the cards. We are highly recommending everybody to be vaccinated. Can we pick the one that's not vaccinated and throw them out? I can't guarantee you that. That's why, and we know this for a fact, globally, masking is the best solution. That's one of the reasons why we're saying that keep your masks on unless you're speaking, and it's okay to speak up to 10-15 minutes because the virus does not really travel that fast or something like that, or whatever they say. But yeah, we want to be careful because we don't want to shut down with a COVID spread or any other kind of viruses. So masking, and that's why we're going to invest some money. I hope we can afford. So please bring your own masks anyway, but we will buy some masks to provide because we think that's the best way to protect ourselves and everybody else. And we are highly recommending to be completely vaccinated and boosted, but we can't really check everybody's vaccine cards. UN is the same way. UN wants you to be vaccinated, but none of the guards are really checking. Okay.
Okay. Yes, our YouTube channel link is in the chat, and that will be where we upload the tutorial videos as well. We will be having those out probably sometime next week. And that will be really, really helpful for following along with all of the things with your exhibit booth, how to edit it, how to get to it, all of that. So keep an eye out for that. And we will also send an email to our mailing list with those tutorial videos as well. Yeah, I think that's it.
Since there is going to be a change with this understanding, there's going to be some requests, I think, Devin, coming in about changing between exhibit and ad. So again, I just want to ask you all to be patient with us. We want you all uploaded and interacting as soon as possible. Trust me. So we will do our best to really take care of all of that. We're also taking care of all the other events that are happening, the partnerships that we are doing. So yeah, I mean, even 48 hours, I raise my hat to you and I bow to you, Devin, on how you and the team keep going through these emails. So if you're still not sure, email us and we will get back to you and upload everything. Devin, you have the final word. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. Yeah, I will end by just saying to really review the resources that we've shared. There's a lot of great information there. Like Hudi just mentioned, we are getting a ton of emails and we will only get more as we get closer to the forum. So just give us, 48 hours to get to your email before following up. Yeah, we will have the tutorials going out next week. Yeah, and I did realize that one exhibit booth, she had pretty much just applied. So all but one, and she actually left the call. So everyone who's here and applied for either an exhibit booth or a handbook ad should have received an acceptance email. That acceptance email will go to the email that you indicated as your primary contact in your application. So definitely check that email inbox first and check the spam, your spam or junk folder. Any emails about handbook ads will go to and from handbookads@ngocsw.org and exhibit booths from info@ngocswnewyork.org. And yeah, I think that's it for me. Again, please feel free to email us with any more questions and keep an eye out for the tutorial videos. And also we are recording this and we will be sharing the recording, and all of the links and resources and information we shared during this session will be in that follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that as well. Yeah, and this recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel too. If you are hosting a parallel event and it didn't make the training last week, we had a very similar training to this, but for parallel event organizers. That happened a week from, or last Thursday. So if you missed that and are organizing a parallel event, definitely check that out as well. And finally, we will be having one more of these training events, but just for general participation, we'll go through the portal as just how to navigate it as a participant and attendee of the forum. And we'll go through some more information, and that is on February 17th. And yeah, and that's the registration for that is on our website and stuff. And then I see Viraj has one last question. Can we change the email handle through the portal after having signed up? No, I have to change the email myself, I'm pretty sure. So if you do need to change the email, just shoot us an email and we can do that real quick. And the parallel event, it is on our YouTube channel. So please go on our YouTube channel to see all the training videos, tutorial videos. This recording will be on our YouTube channel as well. Yeah, I think that's it.
Can I ask that question that I put in the chat several times and didn't see any response to? This version of Zoom presents a screen that I'm not familiar with. I have tried several times to copy the chat because it contains links. It does not copy. It does not paste. And I don't see a raised hand on here, so I didn't mean to be impolite, but I wasn't getting any answers by writing anything in the chat. Thank you.
We will not be sharing the entire chat because it would include private messages, but we will include all of the links that we posted in the chat.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kept answering and obviously he didn't hear my answer either. We will definitely share every link we shared with the email.
And all of these links are also already on our website too. So if you don't want to wait for that follow-up email, you can just check our website as well.
Yeah, well, I didn't see any answers. That's why I wanted to ask.
Oh no, I'm so glad you spoke, John, because I was like wondering why you keep asking and I keep answering, but that's fine.
Yeah, because the chat doesn't even display the way it displays in the other Zoom that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I think, you know what, there's a 3 dot with more on the bottom. If you hit those 3 dots above the more, you can actually, anyway, yeah, it's fine. Sometimes Zoom does weird things.
No, I've got the 3 dots up here. There's nothing there about the chat. So it's just not, and usually in Zoom, I have never seen a way to, with one click, save the entire chat, which means the Zoom session ends and you lose everything.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there during a meeting, wasting time, copying and pasting every time somebody puts something in the chat in order not to lose it. So anyway, it's just trying to come up with a better way of handling.
We did also say that we will share everything again. Okay.
Thank you.
Devin,
Appreciate
we need to wrap up. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And keep an eye out for the follow-up, and we will see you soon.